Hello everyone and welcome to Mountain Lake Journal. For this, the first week in February, I'm Paul Larson. We begin our show with a new documentary premiering on Mountain Lake PBS about a colony of beavers that moved into a small town in Vermont, next door to filmmaker Jim Heltz, who spent a year documenting why his new neighbors became so critically important to their community. They built a healthy ecosystem, created biodiversity, and helped fight climate change. Jim Heltz sits down this week with our Tom Halleck.
We are joined this week by Vermont filmmaker Jim Heltz, who has filmed, written, and produced a new documentary about his new neighbors. Let's take a look.
In 2023, a new family moved in near the Brook Nature Trail by my house on Wildflower Circle. I didn't see a moving truck. There was no welcome wagon, nor did I bring them a casserole. I never saw the family during the day, but at night, teeth gnashing, tree chomping, and tail slapping. Oh, what a racket. By the way, did I mention they were Cassis canadensis? Beavers?
And Jim joins us now. Welcome, nice to see you.
Thank you, Tom. It's great being here.
Take us back to the fall of 2023. That's when you first noticed the beavers that were living around Brook.
That's correct. Where I live in Williston, Vermont, there's woods by my neighborhood. And so I'd walk on these woods all the time, especially when the pandemic happened. I'd be out every day to go. And so in the fall of 2023, I was out there, and in those woods is a network of trails that connect different neighborhoods together and eventually land in the town of Williston's trail system. And at one point, as you come out of the forest, you come to this big opening area, and that's where the Brook is. And at that point, there is a bridge there. And leading up to the bridge on both sides is what they call puncheon, also known as just wooden planks. And their role is just to keep you out of the mud. Well, in the fall of 2023, things were a little different. There was no rain, and when I stepped on those wooden plank, my foot would go down about 6 inches and be covered with water. And I was like, what's going on? And so I went over to the town, and I went in and asked. I said, what's going on with the Brook over by Wildflower Circle, Keystone Drive? And he said, oh, we have beavers.
You really didn't know much about beavers.
No, I didn't. I always joke, I knew six words about beavers. Big teeth, web feet, flat tail. But the town was experienced with the beavers. They've noticed that there was a dam that they could see from the nature trail. And we started talking about the beavers. And he was like, it would be really great if we can see where the other dams were. And I said, you know what, I'd be very happy to go out and film the Brook. It took me a little while, but in a couple of weeks I was able to get some footage, showed it to the town, and they were like, oh, this is great. And the big discovery was, they were amazed that in the little part, there was 7 dams.
They were surprised by that.
Oh yes, we all were.
And so the town was grateful that you were able to answer that question for them. At the same time, you read up on beavers. There's a well-known book by Ben Goldfarb.
Yes.
All about beavers. And
yes.
So you read up on them.
Yeah, so the book is called Eager. It became like this catalyst. It inspired me because I figured once I shot the little thing for the town, that was it. I had no plans on making a documentary film. I was actually sort of semi-retired at that point. Mm-hmm. But I read the book and it really inspired me and made me really think about the role that nature has in our environment. And I felt like there could be a story here. Even in this little Brook in my town, I think there was something to talk about.
And reading up on them, were you blown away by what beavers do and how beneficial they are?
Oh yeah, I had no idea. Like I said earlier, I only knew like a couple of minor things about beavers, and mostly like the cliche stuff. Oh yeah, they cut down a tree, or they make dams. But then you find out about their lodges. But I had no idea why they did these things. Why did they build the dams? What was the purpose for it? And this is what opened my eyes.
And that's the story that you share in the documentary.
Exactly.
So you grabbed your camera, your video camera, and how often did you go out and try to find the beavers?
Well, over the course of a year, so if I started on November 16, 2023, the last day I shot any footage at all was on November 12th, 2024. So, course of a year, I wanted to get the 4 seasons was part of it. The other interesting thing is November, the moon in November is called a beaver moon. So I thought, okay, this is a sign that I'm supposed to be making this film, right? I'm starting and ending my film on the beaver moon, but I went out over 70 times.
Did you really?
Yeah. So, and that includes the interviews that we did with people from the Conservation Committee for the town of Williston, somebody from the Vermont Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah, experts who explain quite nicely in the documentary what beavers do and the benefits of the beavers.
And they filled in all the blanks, because I was learning some stuff, but just by observation. But I did not have the background. I'm a filmmaker. I'm not a beaver expert, and so their role was really to sort of educate everybody, and also me. And so I felt like the film I was being educated and enlightened about the role of beavers in nature. And also I wanted the audience to have the same feeling, this sort of sense of wonder that you find, like, oh, really, they do this, they do that. That's amazing. And I wanted to bring the audience along with me on that journey.
And I think you're right. I think a lot of people obviously know about the dams. They can see flooded areas. They can see where they gnaw the trees down. But I think they may be surprised about how all of that contributes to the ecosystem and benefits the ecosystem.
Exactly. I mean, the idea, like with the dams, the most obvious is like, okay, the beavers making these dams. It's like, so what are those dams are doing? Well, the beavers are making the dams for their benefit, in that it floods an area so they can get to their food source, because they're more comfortable being in the water than running around on land. They don't move great on land, and they're very vulnerable that way. So they like to be in the water. But what that dam is doing is, one, it filters sediment, it cleans the water, because the dams are porous. It's not a brick wall, so it's cleaning out the water. But it's also taking the water and slowing it down, spreading it out, and then sinking it. And what that does, it feeds the land and feeds the water. What we always think of, a beautiful rushing river. In reality, that's not great for the environment. Because what it's doing is just taking nutrients and going from A to B, but not leaving anything in between.
Yep.
With this water being like sinking into the ground, it's hydrating everything, and it's leaving nutrients. And it's also preventing flooding. I mean, we sometimes think of beavers like with flooding, but if the beavers weren't there and there was no dam and it's straight, it's like coming out of a faucet, straight down. But if the water has to go like this, which is what the beavers do to a river, okay, it meanders, there's pools here and there, because you have all these little dams slowing it down. And then, of course, we could talk about the biodiversity. When the beavers build a dam, they make the water more productive. So what happens is they warm up the water just a little bit, which brings in insects, and then the insects bring in fish and amphibians, and then that brings in birds, and then that brings in mammals. And so all of a sudden, all these animals start coming. One of the things I found from observing, I used to see ducks on the Allen Brook, a couple of ducks once in a while. Once the beavers move in, I'd see a lot of ducks all the time. If I didn't see a duck the day I went out, I would be surprised. And I'd see a variety of ducks, not just one type like a mallard or something. I'd see a whole variety. But I'd also see mink, otters, I'd see muskrat. And then as far as birds go, 10 times more birds than ever. I saw a blue heron. I saw a great green heron. I've never seen one of those before. And I've never seen any of these birds on the Allen Brook, other parts of Vermont, but never there. But it's all because of the beavers. The reason beavers are called keystone species, because if they weren't there, nothing else would be coming into that area like that. It's like the keystone is like, it's the main stone. If you take that stone away, the arch falls apart. And the beavers are that main rock. They're the rock that's holding it all together.
And you talk about what they eat. I think some people may be surprised. They think the beavers gnaw down the trees to build their dams, but a lot of people may not realize that's also their diet.
That's it. So beavers eat trees, maples, willows, aspen, birch, trees like that. A lot of trees actually grow back quickly.
Huh.
And that's their main diet. If once the water's in there and it starts they'll eat plants that are in the water, but they're vegetarians.
You mentioned you went out about 70 times altogether.
Yeah.
Are they really elusive? Are they hard to capture on video?
Well, the thing that makes them a little difficult is they're nocturnal. Okay, so they're working a lot at night, but during the late spring and summer, because the days are a lot longer, they're out in this daylight a lot. So I was able to capture a lot of images of the beavers. When they're swimming around, it was a lot more common, and I was able to get a lot of shots of them swimming.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to capture was them working. Taking a stick and sticking it into the dam, them fine-tuning that stick. You know, I have one shot that's in the film where the beaver's taking a stick and shoving it with its paws. You know, he carries it in his mouth, then shoves it with his paws into the dam. And then he sits there and looks at it, and then he starts gnawing on it. He goes, you know what? It's 18 inches long. It really should be 12. And I cuts off that little stick to capture those shots. Those were few and far between.
And as you were capturing that, were you just fascinated watching him think about what he was doing and look at his handiwork and fix it?
I mean, they call them the great engineers, right? I think MIT, that's their logo, is a beaver also, you know. And watching them do this, and especially that shot is the one that really sort of made me sit back and go, they know what they're doing. I mean, they just didn't shove it in and say, okay, that's it. It's like he shoved it in and then paused, looked at it and said, it's not quite right. I need to fine tune it. It's like a fine carpenter, you know. He had to make it exactly right.
You not only shot, narrated, and edited the film, but you also wrote and performed the music to go with the film as well. You produced a soundtrack to go with it.
Yeah. I always wanted to be in a rock band, you know, but I've been playing music for a long time, and I had a certain sound I wanted the film to have, and I felt there's a term that jazz musicians use called "in the pocket," and it was one of those times where I was just, me and the film were in sync. I knew exactly what I wanted to play. I really enjoyed doing that.
You added fun facts and funny cartoons.
Yeah.
So really the film's not only educational, but it's also entertaining.
I like to laugh. I mean, I really enjoy it. And I really wanted the film to educate, but in a very gentle and humorous way. And the cartoon sort of reflects or makes a commentary about what we just saw. And as far as the fun facts, you know, Vermont, upstate New York, Quebec, they've been highly influenced by beavers. And so I wanted people to know, it's like, did you know that there's a snowmobile group that has, that's named after beavers? Or that New York State, at the New York State Museum in Albany, has a giant beaver skull? I mean, things like this are fascinating for me, and I thought for the audience too.
New Neighbors, The Beavers of Allen Brook, coming up on February 7th on Mountain Lake PBS. That's at 7:30 on Saturday night. Then again, Sunday, the 8th at 1:30 in the afternoon. And again on Monday, the 9th. So 3 screenings, and we hope that folks will check it out. It is a great documentary. Jim, thanks a lot for taking the time to come talk with us. We appreciate it.
This is very enjoyable. Thank you, Tom.